Now we are going to go into the rest of it, which is B-roll, getting creative shots, and doing more filming, and then we're gonna go into the editing part. So the next segment is B-roll, and let's show you the video, and then I'll talk more about it after we watch it. So now let's talk about B-roll. So B-roll is basically extra footage that shows the different surroundings and just adds more visual interest to the overall interview. The first kind of B-roll I'm going to capture are wide shots, so I want to show the environment in which they work. And so knowing that I'm going to be walking around, I figured I probably want stable footage, especially I'm going to be walking down the stairs and walking up a step or two. So I decided that for those kinds of shots, to get those wide walking shots in and out of the spaces, the best way to capture that is by using this gimbal. So this gimbal is by DJI. And there are a lot of gimbals that are out there. This is just the one that I like to use. And I am going to be using a wide lens for this one because I want to capture the whole environment. I want to capture the rooms. Okay, so I'm gonna walk around. The first thing I'm gonna do is just lock the exposure because I can see it changing. So I'm gonna hit record. So I'm gonna hold the gimbal a little bit lower and have it slightly looking up. So it's a little bit more of an impressive shot. And now I'm just gonna slowly walk around, and here we go. You'll notice there's a little bit of the gimbal that you're seeing. That's fine. I'm going to crop that out. Okay, so now I'm going to just walk straight, and then the whole reason for this exercise is to just get a feel for their space. So now I'm gonna walk downstairs. So I'm gonna just keep walking through the room in each of the different spaces because each one is actually really unique. So I think it's really important to be part of their story. So let me slowly walk through and I'll pan up a little bit. Okay. And then we're gonna walk in the other room. There's a step down. And then I'm going to probably end the shot where their workshop is. So I usually do a couple of takes just so I have options because I know at one point there I kind of took the wrong step. So it's always good to have options. So I'm gonna do it one more time and come around the same way. Step down. So there are three main shots that I like to get: the wide, the medium, and the close-up shots. Wide shots are great for establishing where the scene is happening. And in order to capture that kind of shot, I like to use the Moment wide telephoto lens. So this is a great lens. It extends what your phone can capture. And I typically will mount this onto the wide lens of the iPhone. So my iPhone has the two lenses in the back. And then to capture the medium shots, I actually don't put anything on my phone. I just shoot it with my phone, and I'm shooting with the wide lens of the phone. The medium shots are really good for more of a narrative kind of shot. It tells a lot of the story because you have some context around, you can see the background, but then you also get to capture your subject a little bit closer. So it tells a lot better of a story than, say, a wide shot. And then the last shot I like to capture is the close-up shot. And so for that, I like to use the Moment telephoto lens. And I will usually mount this onto the wide lens of the iPhone. And then sometimes I will put it onto the telephoto lens of the iPhone if I want to get a little bit more reach. And these shots are good for really providing texture and detail around your story. And so I'm really picky about the close-up shots that I pick because the close-up shots are basically telling your audience what they need to focus on. And usually there's some significance to why they need to look closer at that particular subject that you're shooting. So now I want to capture wide shots of each of the rooms, and I asked Phenom to actually come in here so that she can interact with her environment. So that makes it a little bit more interesting rather than an empty room. So I think I'm going to be pointing the camera this way and capture her doing her sketches on the board and then also interacting with the prototypes. And then I asked her to kind of walk off camera. So there's a little bit of action happening. I'm using a telepod here so I can just hold it still. And I don't need the gimbal because I'm not going to be moving around. So this is the ideal setup for this kind of shot. And so that's just to show the environment and how Phenom interacts with her environment and how she uses the table and what kind of work she does on the whiteboard. So now we're in the room where they do a lot of their work on the computers, where they're doing a lot of their designs. So this shot is also very important to their story. So I'm standing here in the corner kind of as much out of the way as possible. And I've asked them to sit at their computers and just work the way they normally would. So I'm gonna hit record and I'm just not gonna move. So I'm just gonna wait and record maybe, I don't know, like 10 seconds of this. Pick the best 2 seconds. So now we're in the room where they record videos of themselves teaching, and I actually asked them to set it up the way they normally would set it up for when they create the videos. And so we moved the tripod in the way here, and we don't need to get too long of footage for this one, but just enough to communicate what this room is used for. So as I go from room to room, the exposure is always changing, so I'm always fiddling around with my settings and make sure that it's not too bright or not too dark. So I just adjusted it now for this particular room because the other room was really dark. This is the room that Phenom normally just works in by herself, so I asked Martis to step out because this is her room. And so I'm going to ask her to maybe interact with some of the bags or just to show how she moves around the space. So I'm gonna hit record and I'm just gonna stand here and just observe how Phenom works around her space. And it's actually really tempting for me to walk over there right now. But we're gonna capture that shot later on when we're doing the medium shots. So that is perfect, actually. That's good. All right. Can I have you working at the sewing machine again? This time I'm going to be a little bit closer in.
Okay.
Okay, so hit record.
A nice piece. I can cut.
That. And Phenom. Ooh, that looks cool. And I'm actually just gonna record. So that's a great shot there. So I'm gonna capture a few seconds here, and then I'm gonna walk to behind her and do an over the shoulder shot. So I'm gonna walk. And now we are going to get closer in, again, so I can see both her hands and her face as she's working on the sewing machine. So I'm gonna come around so I can see her face, not just the back of her head. And so she turned the light on, so I'm gonna have to adjust the exposure there a little bit. So moving the exposure down a little bit. And now we're ready to roll. So now I'm going to do close-ups of Phenom working with her hands. Hands are always very interesting. And then you get to see the details of the work that she's doing.
Actually, sorry, can I?
Yeah,
move
go
the
ahead.
table?
Yeah, go ahead. Just get out of your way. All right. And so she's just getting that piece ready for the sewing machine. And then I'm going to do a tight close-up shot of her at the sewing machine. That's actually really interesting to see the needle going in and out of the leather. So I'm actually, as she's cutting this, I also want to capture this. So I am actually going to do a close-up of her cutting it. It's fascinating.
So I'm creating holes for hand stitching. These are tools that have been around for 200 years.
Nice.
So what's nice about the way we make bags here is that we use very old techniques
Yeah.
and mix them with new machinery.
Awesome. I'm going to do a shot of your face. Is there any way to kind of brush your hair? Perfect. There you go. All right. So you do that.
So this is prepped for hand stitching, and the other side I'm going to machine stitch.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to show the machine.
This is an industrial leather sewing machine.
And lastly, is it Martis that's in this room?
Yes.
Okay.